This is Special Prosecutor Larry Klayman.
I'm the only lawyer ever to obtain a court ruling that a president of the United States committed a crime.
For truth. For competition.
As a young lawyer, I helped break up AT&T. That's why you have all your cell phones today.
For sovereignty. For the Republic.
I'm the guy who at Judicial Watch, which I founded, uncovered the Chinagate scandal. Millions of dollars going to the Clinton campaign, corrupting our political system.
For the privacy of citizens.
And I'm the only guy to have enjoined the National Security Agency from mass surveillance on hundreds of millions of Americans.
Tearing it up.
I'm the son of meat packers in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. I know how to slice and dice.
Bringing it back.
We're going to take this country apart and put it back together again in the way envisioned by our founding fathers.
It's not just talk.
We're not just regurgitating news stories. Larry Klayman, special prosecutor, is making the news.
And now, here's Larry.
Welcome to this week's edition of Special Prosecutor with Larry Klayman, a super important show. And let me tell you why. It's because we are now formally at war with the left. Yes, let's get that clear. We are at war with the left. This is our equivalent of December 7th, 1941. Because I'll tell you something, the president now has been acquitted of impeachment. Now, you would think that the Democrats and the left would lay down their sword and say, okay, let's go to the election, let's decide this matter. But no, they don't want to go to the presidential elections. Gerald Nadler, that 100 pounds of you-know-what in a 50-pound bag, that head of the House Judiciary Committee, Adam Schiff, Nancy Pelosi, the whole rest of them say, we're continuing on. We're going to keep this up. We're going to continue to investigate the president. And on top of that, you've got these miscreants, these unbelievable people like Judge Napolitano on Fox News, Juan Williams, Arthel Neville, Chris Wallace, Leon Vitter, the whole rest of them that are keeping the drumbeat up on is supposed to be a conservative network, trying to undermine the president. Napolitano now is gleefully predicting the president is going to be impeached and tried again. Now, Fox News is being run by Lachlan Murdoch, who's a raving leftist. His brother, James, was implicated in actually wiretapping the royal family in England a number of years ago. They could have been indicted, but for the fact that the Murdochs obviously paid off every person in Great Britain to avoid that. So not only do we have this vile left out there continuing wanting to destroy the president of the United States, but we even have half of Fox News supporting it. And of course, CNN and MSNBC and the rest of the leftist media, Daily Beast, you name it, Salon, Slate, Wonket, which is run by Commie Girl Network. Of course, no one even knows who they are, but they've defamed me. I've sued them recently. They're all out there viciously, like wicked witches and warlocks planning the destruction of President Donald J. Trump. They're not finished. They're like wounded predators. And this is what we're up against right now. Now, to show you where we are in this entire war is that Rush Limbaugh, who has stage 4 lung cancer, okay, and I know how serious that is. My dad died of that at the end of his life. He could have lived longer, but the people in Jefferson Hospital in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, completely blew the diagnosis and screwed around for 3 or 4 weeks before they could even treat him. He died almost at 90, so at least he lived that far. But this is very serious. I know about that. And no sooner than he revealed that he had stage 4 lung cancer, he was attacked by the left as a racist. He was attacked by Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. He was attacked by Joseph Biden as being a racist. Now, you know, Joseph Biden should not be thrown stones, okay, because this guy is a major criminal. He obviously shook down the Ukrainian government for billions of dollars in money through his son. God knows what they got in kickbacks. It needs to be investigated. No one's done it so far. It won't get done by the government for sure, at least the Justice Department with our worthless Attorney General Bill Barr, who's only slightly less worthless than Jeff Sessions, who unbelievably is running for Senate again against my client, who is a good man, a righteous man, Judge Roy Moore in Alabama. But these people called Limbaugh a racist. Now, look, he's not a racist. Limbaugh is not a racist because he raises things that need to be discussed. But to do that with somebody who has stage 4 lung cancer, whether it's terminal or not within the last 5 years, he's not going to live his full life as a result. It's just low class and disgusting. And it shows you where they are. And then you've got Nancy Pelosi, that wicked witch of the left, the co-witch. She's a sister of Hillary Clinton. I mean, just dripping venom at the White House, at the State of the Union address, ripping up the speech. Yesterday, when the president questions her religious beliefs, obviously she doesn't really have any religious beliefs. It's too easy for politicians to say God bless and to say prayers. The people that took down Jesus years ago, they also thought they were religious. So, and I'm not talking about my Jewish brothers, okay? I'm talking about some bad high priests, and I'm talking about Pontius Pilate at that time. Not the Jewish people as a whole, because they became Jesus's followers. They became Christians in large part. But what we have here is something very similar going back to biblical days with those high priests, with the Roman hierarchy, in Palestine at the time. And, the viciously trying to take down our Savior, okay, our Messiah. And I'm not saying that Trump is a Messiah. No, I'm not saying that. There's only one Messiah, and that's Jesus. That's Yeshua in Hebrew. He was the truest Jew there ever was, in my opinion. He was a Jew through and through. And the Jewish people and the Christian people can unite around that, regardless of whether you think Jesus was the Messiah or not. We are the same people. And we're fighting a war right now. We're fighting a war against the left, who are atheists, the left, who are Bolsheviks, who believe that the ends justify the means, that will go to any lengths to destroy someone, and it doesn't matter whether it's the President of the United States, Rush Limbaugh, Larry Klayman, or Ty Clevenger that we're having on later on during the show. I want you to get to know Ty, because he's a very courageous lawyer that I've worked with in the past. And the bar associations are trying to take him down as they're trying to take me down, because they're run by leftists. Not all of them, but the D.C. bar in particular is infested with leftists, communists, and others who want to remove lawyers who challenge their concept of what this country should be, a socialist, communist gulag. And there are people in the disciplinary council of the D.C. bar and sitting on hearing committees who not only support these individuals that are trying to take the country down, but actually communists on the hearing committee. And we've talked about that. A guy named Michael Tiger, he's proud of being a communist. He sat on a hearing committee with me, and I'm fighting that. We'll hear more about that in future shows. But right now, the American people need to rise up. We need to take a stand. We need to do what needs to be done peacefully and legally. And we don't have judges who are supporting our cause. These are political hacks, by and large, that have been put in on both sides, Democrat and Republican. They're scared of their shadow. And Ty's going to talk about Judge Richard Leon, who I've had an experience with in cases against the NSA, cases against the Obama deep state, where I enjoined them twice, and then he dismissed cases without any rationale because we believe they got stuff on him. We need to fight back. Now, just yesterday, if you can believe this, Mayor Pete defames my client George Zimmerman, calls him a white supremacist on the birthday of Trayvon Martin. So does Elizabeth Warren. Well, they're going to answer legally for that. Because if we don't fight back, this country is going to be lost. And we need to take a stand right now. And it's very, very serious. And when you have a network that most conservatives thought at least was fair and balanced for a while, I knew it wasn't fair and balanced. I've always found Fox to be extremely unethical. When you have them, through the so-called Judge Napolitanos, through Chris Wallace, through Juan Williams, through Arthel Neville, through Lachlan Vitter, run by Lachlan Murdoch, a leftist, playing both sides of the street to boost their advertising dollars. Also, sinister, trying to take the president down. And this president, if he goes down, we all go down with him. Then you've got a very, very serious situation. And it's something that cannot be permitted in this country. So we will do whatever we can to bring about justice. And I need your help. I need you to go to freedomwatchusa.org with tax-deductible contributions. We don't have $100 and some million in the bank like the group that I founded, Judicial Watch. And they're able to do that because Tom Fitton goes on Fox News. They get documents. You see, the networks want the documents. but they do little to nothing else other than get documents. The question is, great, get documents. We get documents too at Freedom Watch, but then we bring hard-hitting cases. Watch what we do with Buttigieg. Watch what we do with Warren for defaming George Zimmerman. You see, we'll put our neck on the firing line. Okay, we'll take the heat. We're not there just grandstanding on Sean Hannity. We're there to actually do the heavy lifting. And really, there are very few people who back us up. There are very few people who stand behind us because they're scared. They're scared of retribution. They're scared that they're going to be taken out. I'm scared for the president right now. And, I've said this because look what happened to John Kennedy when he took on the CIA. When I'm not saying he did the right thing, but, he left the CIA on beaches in Cuba during the Bay of Pigs. People thought he was soft on communism. He withdrew our missiles from Turkey in an under-the-table deal with Khrushchev at the time. And as a young boy, I liked John Kennedy, and I mourned for him. I still do. But many people believe the CIA took Kennedy out. They believe that Kennedy was assassinated with the collusion of the CIA. And not just me. There's a movie about that, JFK by Oliver Stone. I don't agree with Oliver Stone a lot of the time, but there's some truth here. James Garrison in New Orleans, others. The president needs to get good people around him. He needs to make sure that the Secret Service is loyal. I pray for him too, because these leftists will stop at nothing to destroy him, and I pray that that won't happen. And this is my clarion call for him to wake up, to start using his executive power that he has, to fight back, to eliminate these people peacefully and legally, not to urge that they be indicted, but to get an attorney general in there that's got some cojones, as they say in Spanish, who will do his job, who doesn't put his head in the sand. He hasn't had one like that. And we need to have a partner over there at my former alma mater, the Justice Department, but we don't have that, and we don't have it on Capitol Hill. Lindsey Graham could have brought Hunter Biden in forward. The Democrats would have never gone forward with impeachment. So support Freedom Watch at freedomwatchusa.org. I'm going to be back with the second segment of Special Prosecutor with Larry Klayman.
Fearless.
He's claiming he's crazy, he's racist, he's out to kill the Democrats.
Dangerous.
You don't care, he uses the court and the law.
Lethal.
This is bad.
Special Prosecutor
Very bad.
Larry Klayman.
If you'd like to support Freedom Watch and this radio show, go to freedomwatchusa.org.
Let me tell you who also needs your support. It's my client, Cliven Bundy, along with his family. We know the story. Cliven Bundy and his family ranched the land at Bunkerville for 150 years. Good ranchers. This is the salt of the earth of the American people, ranching. And what he encountered was a vile deep state under the Obama administration that wanted to move him off the land, to sell that land, as it was reported, under the table to Chinese so-called environmental interests. It was a snatch of the land. It's right out of Rocky and Bullwinkle, but in real life, Snidely Whiplash, if you might remember that, if you're old enough to remember that, the evil villain. Who was the evil villain? The corrupt Senator Harry Reid. The corrupt senator who has mafia connections. I'm not saying he is mafia, but, in Las Vegas, Nevada, everybody has mafia connections. And he's somebody who was reported to have orchestrated getting Cliven Bundy off his ranch. And he did that through the Bureau of Land Management. He put in his person. Obama had him appointed, Neil Cornsey, who executed that raid, that illegal raid on Cliven Bundy's ranch. And in so doing, that raid that we all know about, Cliven's sister Margaret was assaulted and thrown to the ground. The bulls in his herd, which are necessary to keep that herd up to procreate, many of them were secretly killed by goons of Bureau of Land Management and mercenaries that were brought in there and buried in a secret mass grave. His sons were tased. People were threatened. At the time, and this is a story about Fox News that I've been talking about, Sean Hannity was covering this nearly every night to boost his ratings and advertising dollars. And people from throughout the land came on horseback, many of them. They were armed, using their Second Amendment rights to protest. They were peaceful. And in the end, the Bundys succeeded, along with the peaceful protesters, at having the federal government leave the land. Now, after that happened, I was driving up to the Bundy Ranch just a day or so after that happened, and I was listening on the radio to what was being reported. I had not represented the Bundys up to that point in time. Someone had put me in contact with them because they knew that the siege was not going to stop, that the Obama deep state, orchestrated by the Bureau of Land Management, would be back, and by the FBI and by the Justice Department, with another attempt to entrap the Bundys. And Clive had made a statement that was innocent. He said, "I feel like I was treated like the Negro in the Old South." Now, he didn't know that we no longer use the word Negro. Martin Luther King used the word Negro. But anyway, to make the long story short, Obama actually mocked Bundy for that at a White House Correspondents' Dinner and threatened him. And sure enough, the Bundys were indicted, and many of the peaceful protesters, they went to trial. It was before an Obama-appointed judge. She did everything she could to get everybody convicted. They didn't succeed. But even in the end, she had to dismiss the indictment to save her own skin, because we caught the government lying under oath, hiding exculpatory evidence that could go to acquit the Bundys. And a whistleblower came forward from the BLM, a supervisor by the name of Larry Wooten, who actually revealed there was a kill list on the heads of the Bundys. Now, you would think at that point, now that Trump is in charge of the Justice Department, that they would go away after the dismissal. But no, the Trump Justice Department, which the president doesn't even control, where the attorney general is in name only, he sits there, God knows what he's doing, with his hand on something. I don't know what it is. Maybe playing patty cakes with himself at best. Let's the government, the U.S. attorney in Nevada, who committed all this prosecutorial misconduct, appeal the case. The case is now on appeal. We have oral argument on March 23rd before the Ninth Circuit in Las Vegas, a satellite court of the Ninth Circuit. And I need your support for the Bundys. I need your support. We've fought back. We bring malicious prosecution cases. We are seeking to have the land declared owned by the people of Nevada to keep the BLM off the land again. And they'll be back once Trump once he's out of office or loses in 2020, God forbid. But we need your support. I want you to go to ClevenBundyDefenseFund.org. Cliven Bundy Defense Fund. That's CLIVENBUNDY DefenseFund.org. Contribute to that cause. See what's going on. I represent Cliven in this case in my private capacity. I'll be right back with Ty Clevenger, who's fighting another battle with regard to his client who was sued over Seth Rich. I'll be right back.
And now, 4 words that make corrupt politicians make wee-wee in their little pants.
Transparency and the rule of law will be the touchstones of this presidency.
But we have to pass the bill so that you can find out what is in it.
Special Prosecutor Larry Klayman.
Be the one who makes our country great again. Go to freedomwatchusa.org and donate.
I'm back with a good friend, someone I've worked with in the past, a lawyer with integrity, a lawyer that has guts. I don't know of many in this country that have the courage of Ty Clevenger. He's taken on very powerful people. He's paid the price, as I have, in doing that. But he doesn't give up. He's like the Energizer Bunny. And I want to introduce you to Ty Clevenger, a former Justice Department lawyer like myself. And he's going to tell us what's been going on with regard to a case involving Seth Rich lately in the U.S. District Court for the District of Columbia, with a judge that I've had experience with, Judge Richard Leon, who joined the Obama deep state, the NSA, twice in 2014, 2015, only to, quote, inexplicably, unquote, bail out of letting the case go forward. And we'll talk a little bit about that, but I want to hear from Ty right now what's been going on with Judge Leon.
Thank you, Larry. Appreciate that introduction. There are actually several cases in different parts of the country going on that center around Seth Rich. His parents have sued my client, Ed Butowski, in New York. his brother, Aaron, has sued Ed in D.C., and then Ed's got lawsuits in Texas against people involved in this. And as you mentioned, the D.C. case, Judge Leon is presiding, and there have just been some really strange developments in that case that look extremely suspicious. We had been really pushing Aaron Rich to authorize WikiLeaks to reveal whatever it knows specifically about whether Seth Rich and Aaron Rich were involved in leaking emails. And they made all kinds of excuses for it for months, and then eventually said, well, we will we'll issue our own subpoena. Well, they never issued the subpoena, so we frankly taunted them. And finally, they agreed to do it, that they would ask for what's called the letters rogatory. So they would ask the U.S. court to ask the British court to set up the deposition of Julian Assange. And so, mind you, we've got both sides, plaintiff and defendants, agreeing we need the testimony of Julian Assange. This is important. And the judge just shrugs it off, says, I'm not going to do it. No explanation. Just says, I'm not going to do it. And
what's the essence of the case, Ty?
What's that?
What is the essence of your case? What's your suit?
Well,
the crux of it?
Aaron Rich is claiming that he was slandered when my client, Ed Butowski, stated that Aaron was involved in the leaks. And so we're trying to prove that he was involved, and of course they're trying to prove that he wasn't. And the person who's going to be the definitive know the most on this is going to be Julian Assange. So he's the most critical witness in the case. And I mentioned to you to this before we came on air. We were talking about how Judge Leon is personal friends with John Podesta, and of course John Podesta was Hillary's campaign manager. Some of his emails were published by WikiLeaks. So given the fact that there's that long-standing friendship with Podesta, and given the fact that that the judge is making these inexplicable rulings, it looks like my client's not going to get a fair trial.
Well, that doesn't come as a surprise. And let me give you a little history here, which our listeners have heard of before, but just to refresh their recollection. When I filed lawsuits after Snowden came forward with his information that there was mass surveillance on the American people, and, of course, people that had been critical of the government with regard to Verizon, cell phone records, I was using Verizon at the time, and I brought a lawsuit in my own name. It's styled Clayman versus Obama. It's rather famous at this point. And Leon found that case to be at the pinnacle of national importance. That's a quote. He pushed it along. He ultimately issued 2 preliminary injunctions. He claimed that what was going on was, quote, almost Orwellian, a violation of the Fourth Amendment. Now, that case, it was not only for an injunctive relief, that's called equitable, as you know, but also for damages for illegal surveillance. And I sued the intelligence czars in their personal capacities. And Leon wouldn't let that case go forward. The case did give rise to the USA Freedom Act, which didn't do much of anything because the agencies continue to violate the Fourth Amendment, that is the intelligence agencies and the FBI. But inexplicably, he dismissed these cases, and I couldn't even get into discovery. I had learned from a whistleblower that Leon was surveilled himself by these intelligence agencies and by the FBI. And I tried to bring that whistleblower in front of him to testify. He wouldn't hear it. And I said, just do it in camera, Your Honor. If there's national security implications, you have a security clearance, top secret. You can do it. Wouldn't do it. So I then asked him in a pleading, politely, I said, have you had ex parte communications with the intelligence agencies and the FBI, meaning, under the table behind our back? I mean, it's a nice way of putting it, ex parte. He wouldn't answer and accused me of being a conspiracy theorist. So somebody's got something on Judge Leon. And when I see him in the courthouse these days, and I walk by him sometimes, he can barely look at me. He just says, Mr. Clayman. That's it. Now, he does have a reputation of being very slow at what he does, enigmatic. He's dismissed other cases without any basis at all. So I wonder what kind of stuff they have on him. And I'm sure the Democrats have stuff on him, too, not just a friendship with Podesta. but he's worried about what they might have and they could use against him. That's my view.
Would not surprise me in the least. Not after what we've seen over the last 3 years.
Well,
there are other strange things going on in the case. For example, Matt Couch is one of the defendants in that case, and Judge Leon arbitrarily limited the parties to 5 depositions, but would not give Matt any depositions because he was represented. He was pro se. He was not represented by an attorney. So he wasn't going to let him defend himself. And then an attorney agrees to represent Matt pro bono, and then the judge still only gives him 3 depositions. So it's just, the whole thing is really bizarre.
Well, it is. It's part and parcel to what goes on over there. You're lucky you even got to discovery, Ty.
No, that's true. Yeah.
Because, these judges are using...
Go ahead. I was just going to say, I previously...
These judges are using the Supreme Court case of Bell Atlantic versus Quamby to dismiss cases that they don't consider to be plausible. I mean, this is, they sit there like they're God, and they won't even let the facts come out a lot of the time. So it's quite amazing that you even got 3 depositions, but obviously that's not enough.
No, this is a complex case. I mean, it's got international legs to it. And to say that we're going to – and here's the other thing. You're right. Judge Leon has a reputation for moving slowly, and yet he is trying to bum rush this case to trial. He wants to try it within a matter of, I believe, that April, as I recall. And yet he's not allowing the defendants to get out and conduct discovery. So here's a judge that normally moves at a snail's pace, and all of a sudden he wants to just rush this thing through. So, it begs a lot of questions about what's going on behind the scenes.
And your client is the defendant, right?
Right. He's a defendant.
Well, that explains why he's rushing it. If you were the plaintiff, you could forget it, okay? So,
right.
You wouldn't even been this far. Because, see, this is what we deal with today, and you know what we deal with today. This is this Washington club. It's the swamp. The whole issue of Seth Rich has been made radioactive. They've sued everybody under the sun. My client, Jerry Corsi, was threatened to, he settled with them and retracted what he said. But and I never got into that. That was on his own. But this is something which, is symptomatic of our country today.
It is.
That there are certain scenarios that are out there. People get smeared. They get destroyed. I have clients like Sheriff Joe Arpaio, like Judge Roy Moore, like George Zimmerman. Just yesterday, for instance, Pete Buttigieg and Elizabeth Warren defamed my client Zimmerman, who just brought a lawsuit because we found that a phony witness had been presented to get him indicted in the first place, and then a phony witness at trial. And we brought a lawsuit for abuse of process against the state of Florida and everybody else involved, including those, the family lawyers and those in the Trayvon Martin family. They were willing to have George Zimmerman go to prison for life. If he'd been indicted at first degree, he could have gotten the electric chair in Florida and had no problem presenting a phony witness. So we brought a lawsuit on that. But Buttigieg and Warren come out yesterday and call Zimmerman a white supremacist, in effect, and defame him. And it's open season because if the leftist media...
sue them until they bleed out of their ears.
That's right. If you get defamed by the leftist media, you can't come back and defend yourself. And these judges, they're part of the club. They want to go to the soirees in Georgetown, to the special events that they have at the courthouse. All the lawyers rub shoulders with each other. Doesn't matter whether you're left, right, center, or whatever. It's the Washington club. And if you challenge that Washington club, this is what you get.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, I hope you and George Zimmerman take them down hard.
Yeah, well, this goes back to a number of years ago. We have a few minutes as that Ty and I first came into contact with each other over a case in Memphis, Tennessee, where a woman, a naturalized citizen from France, Rosine Galgi, encountered her husband who was supporting terrorism, and we came up against a judge who simply, Ty was monitoring the case because the judge wouldn't let me in the case to defend my client, Rosine, in a custody dispute. Ty was just monitoring that case, and he wound up getting put up on the witness stand, and the judge threatened him with prison if he didn't break attorney-client privilege. We later got the judge sanctioned. It was one of the only time in my entire career I got a judge sanctioned. So, Ty's a courageous guy, Ty. That's why
Well,
I love you, Guy, because you're one of a kind out there, and there's nobody else out there that'll stick their neck out.
Well, you've done a pretty good job of sticking yours out, I'd have to say. You got the scars to show for it.
Yeah, we both do. But what's the choice? I mean, I always say we have to do it peacefully and legally. We never advocate violence or anything like that. But if you can't use the courts to get justice, then where do you go?
Where do you go next? Yeah, that's the question. Yeah, I have to say one thing about this fiasco with Russia collusion, Ukraine collusion, whatever, is I think it's opening the door to public awareness of how corrupt the courts are. This is not just NSA, it's not just FBI or CIA. The courts themselves are very much part of the problem.
Well, they're the major problem, because if you don't have the courts to protect you from the tyranny of the other two branches of government and from ourselves, then what is the alternative? Is it violent revolution? That's what happened in the days leading up to 1776 and the Declaration of Independence, when King George III took our criminal justice system back to England. We had no justice system. We have no justice system today, Ty. We don't. No. Whether it's the courts or the bar associations that try to eliminate conservative lawyers, D.C., for instance, they all gave heavily, nearly all of them, big money to Clinton, Obama, and the rest of the people that run the disciplinary council and that kind of thing. So where do you go? And that's why I think we're in a dangerous period in American history. And the president, Trump, says he's going to push back now after this phony impeachment where he was acquitted. But we'll see. Even he doesn't push back. He just sends out tweets. So what do the American people do when the left is trying to seize control of this country and there is no court system to try to right that, to prevent that?
Well, I know the course of history is people pick up their pitchforks. And
that's what we're trying to avoid.
But I think we're getting close.
Yeah. So we have 1 minute left. Ty, where can they go to read up about your case? Because this is kind of a case study. I'm writing a new book, and I'm going to include it in there with your permission. You can review it first, obviously. But this is one example of a complete breakdown of the federal judiciary.
Right. I've been blogging about the Seth Rich stuff on my blog, which is Lawflog, LAWFLOG.com. I've not been blogging as much lately, but hopefully that will pick up some more. As you well know, when you're trying to represent clients and you're getting inundated with motions and responses, then turning around and trying to blog about it, keep people updated, sometimes falls through the cracks.
Well, it does. Yeah, I get tied down every day. I wish I could do more, but I think education is where we need to go. Anyway, I want to thank you, Ty, for coming on, and we'll have you on again, obviously, good friend. And the American people appreciate for what you're doing for them. So God bless you.
Thanks.
Take care, Guy.
Before he was a trial lawyer, he sliced him and diced him.
People used to ask me, Larry, what caused you to start Judicial Watch and now Freedom Watch, given the powerful forces in this country that put you at risk?
In a meat packing plant.
I'm the son of meat packers in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. I know how to slice and dice.
A very special prosecutor, Larry Klayman.
If you'd like to support Freedom Watch and this radio show, go to freedomwatchusa.org.
Now the verdict, fellow patriots, ladies and gentlemen, my friends, my supporters, frankly, the friends and supporters of the vision of our founding fathers to save our republic. We are at war. We have nothing to fear but fear itself. Let me quote Franklin Roosevelt, who's not really high on my list of great presidents, but he said that and he was right. We have nothing to fear but fear itself. We need fearless people like Ty Clevenger, like Larry Klayman. I think probably we're the only two I can think of right now, who will lay it all on the line. We're not afraid of the government. We're not afraid of bar disciplinary councils like in D.C., which is totally corrupt, the Bar Disciplinary Council. They're trying to eliminate conservative lawyers like Ty, like myself, but at the same time protecting people like David Kendall, who actually sat on a hearing committee with Ty at the time. We'll get into that in another show. But it's a full court press by the left. to destroy conservatives, libertarians, people of faith, others who don't agree with their socialist, communist, atheist concept of what this country should be. Now, the fact is this: they're not giving up. They are more emboldened. They're wounded water buffaloes, wounded grizzly bears, wounded timber wolves, wounded predators. They now are more vicious than ever. And I am afraid, and we're going to do a show on this, I'm afraid that the deep state is going to try to take the president out by whatever means they can. Look at what happened to John F. Kennedy. I made reference to that earlier on during the show. Many people feel that the CIA, collaborating with the mafia, collaborating with the Soviet Union at the time in a way, in a parallel way, not because they were dealing with them, was responsible for the death of John F. Kennedy. I don't know. I pray that's not going to happen. But somebody's got to say it, and people are afraid to say it. I actually wrote a column on this, and a publication which I write for frequently didn't want to publish it because it's strong. But we need to have our eyes open. And that is why what we're doing at Freedom Watch is so important. What I'm doing for Cliven Bundy, go to ClevenBundyDefenseFund.org. What I'm doing for George Zimmerman is so important. Just yesterday, you have Pete Buttigieg and you have Elizabeth Warren defaming Zimmerman because it was the birthday of Trayvon Martin. They think they have license to do whatever they want. They can use George Zimmerman, who was just defending himself, as a whipping boy for their political purposes. Well, watch what we do in that regard, because they're going to answer for that. And we have to make sure that we keep pushing back peacefully and legally. We have to make sure that we educate the American people. I want you to share this radio show. I want you to share my daily podcast, which I do for 7 to 10 minutes. You can find it at freedomwatchusa.org. You can find it at radioamerica.com. You can find it at Spotify. You can find it at iTunes. You can find it at Patreon. Please distribute it, because no one will say or do what I do. That's a fact. That's a reality. My former group, I always say this because it's comparative advertising, okay? They've got over $100 million in the bank for getting documents. Yeah, documents gets them on Sean Hannity or Fox or whatever. And then they raise money off of that. And people think, oh, isn't this great? But what good is it with the documents when you don't bring hard-hitting cases? What good is it if you don't have citizens' grand juries? What good of it if you don't speak clearly, if you try to couch things? You see? So this is not what we need to do right now to continue this country, to keep it alive and well. And that's why I'm saying you need to go to freedomwatchusa.org, contribute to our cause, freedomwatchusa.org. Join our Justice League. Do something positive. It's not positive to watch Hannity at night. I mean, yeah, get information, get the information, then turn it off. We don't need to hear the same old guests say the same old things, promising that justice is just around the corner. I mean, we're not stupid. You know, in New York, they say, what are you, stupid? You know, we are not. We, the American people, need to rise up. We need to take action ourselves. We cannot wait for the government to do it for us, because the government is working against us. And it was Thomas Jefferson who said, when the people fear the government, there's tyranny, but when the government fears the people, there's liberty. They must fear us peacefully and legally. And I want to thank you. So listen to this, share it, and support us. God bless you. God bless your family. God bless America. And God save America. I'll be back next week.